Yesterday, I happened to be in a local shopping mall here, and just wandering around. I was with my daughter. Okay, she's a bit of a teenager, an adult teenager. But yeah, we looked around, father and daughter time, as it were, and as a bit of a entertainment, we walked into the local Lego store. Yeah, we got one in there. Yeah, here. Yeah, I mean, it's actually quite incredible when you look up and the kits that are available now. Yeah, I mean, things from popular culture, architecture, science, everything. Um, and yeah, I got talking to um, the shop attendant there, nice guy. He spoke a little bit of English. He speak a little bit of Portuguese. So between us, we had a joint conversation. And yeah, I was explaining to him when I was young, in the 1970s and the 1980s, had Lego, nothing as grandiose as these kits. But yeah, we used to make things with them. And yeah, you can get Star Wars kits. When we were youngsters, we just had the white long bricks. The other bricks are the flat surface ones. And we used to make X-Wing fighters. And yeah, and other things, from Star Wars. Total imagination. Didn't have any characters. They're in your head. Yeah. Because I never had any Lego figures. My parents didn't have that sort of money. Yeah. We're grateful we had bricks as well. So we used to combine the Lego and the bricks together. And we had I had Meccano at one point as well. Although my Meccano set dated probably built from the 1950s. It had a wind-up motor. You always remember that. Yeah. And I think that got passed on to another member of the family. Got a collector's item now, I believe. I don't know what's happened to it. Um, but yeah, and I had other toys, including model cars, which yeah, was all good fun, all great fun. Um, yeah, I mean, we used our imagination a lot. Like I said, we didn't have the figures. It was in there. We drove the cars around. Figures were in there. I'm not reminiscing the point for this, but yeah, um, yeah, sort of,
I am.
yeah, yeah, well, but again, I was explaining to the guy in the shop, who's probably in his early 20s. Yeah, he seemed quite interested because you can actually buy. I noticed now you can actually now buy separate bricks again. And I said, well, that'd be really good to go in there and you get there's like got a cup. It's a little bit like getting ice cream. Yeah, paying for the kilograms. So much for 130 arrives for a cup of bricks. You fill it up like this. They're selling bricks and spare hands and things like for characters. Yeah, which I think is brilliant. And I said to him, well, instead of buying, you could just buy that and just buy your kid a few bricks and things like this for them to play with, to initially start with. Yeah. Um, yeah. He looked at me with silence on that one. But yeah, I mean, it got me thinking. Um, I mean, now there is a tendency for youngsters to have electronic toys. And by that, I mean, yeah, which were coming in when I was younger. Don't get me wrong. And I had some, um, which are entertaining, can be of use. Um, like if you're pushing buttons and all that, can help with your reflexes and everything else, which, is all good. And these toys are sometimes designed with education in mind. We had the one used to have, which was a spelling toy. My mother didn't like all that, parents. Yeah, spelling was done old school. A bit of paper, you don't spell it right, get it right next time. Yeah, that was the game. Not getting a tap. No, it wasn't quite that bad. Or telling the time on a clock. Yeah. My parents actually, yeah, helped with that type of things on it. They spent time with me. Yeah. I wasn't shoved in a room somewhere away from everything. Yeah. So I'm not saying e-games and other things don't have a place. Though I will say it's interesting that when you watch a baby, and I saw this quite recent with a younger relative of mine who, yeah, 20 something who's recently had a child, the child crawling about would ignore the toy and go for the box or go for some other inanimate object, a hairbrush, something. Yeah. Um, And it's quite interesting the way they're looking at it and examining it, and then find a game to put in. They start automatically putting things into the box. Yeah, going around collecting sometimes, putting things into the box. Okay, that's interesting. And so they get a collection of things. Yeah, you've got to be careful because if you put something down, it disappears. Yeah, I mean, yeah, babies are attracted to mobile phones now, or younger people are. Yeah. But also, yeah, when I was younger, we had traditional toys, soldier figures, which was primarily for boys. My sister had dolls. I mean, I had action figures. I also had action men, things like this. I'm sorry for brand naming things, but to give an example, yeah, you could get more. And when I was young, you got garage mock-up kits and kitchen appliances. Yeah, I'm not suggesting which way was which. Yeah, but yeah, and I noticed in a local toy shop we still got in the local shopping mall, because you know when you with your younger people, they go around. Even an 18-year-old or 19-year-old likes to go in and reminisce about their childhood. Yeah, I noticed you can still buy these things in these shops as well. I couldn't believe the price of them, but yeah. Um, but yeah, now my overall thinking is I'm going with this, that I like the idea of traditional toys, as I've just said, and it helps with dexterity of the fingers and other things and planning. And yeah, why the joke is on the internet now about you buy a young kid a thing with star shapes in cubes, and they got to put them in the right hole and everything. Yeah, because you know, obviously, it's people trying to, you know, on the internet. There's memes of people trying to fit things, big things, into small holes, um, small spaces. So makes them aware, but it's also good that youngsters are aware of technology. Yeah, and it's like, yeah, I'll see with my daughter. She's learning all about computers and hardware because she does gaming, but she's a bit old, obviously, teen. But yeah, when they start like a bit younger, they begin to have an understanding. So I'm going to put this out to you. Um, do you think there's still a benefit in having traditional toys, or do you think we should ban kids from having really young kids from having electronic toys, or do you think there's a benefit in both? Over to you, Steve.
Well, when you were going on about all your old toys and like I said, you said that you weren't reminiscing, and I said, well, I was,
Yeah,
because I remember all my old toys,
yeah,
toys that I used to, the Legos. I mean, when I was a kid, the Lego, you can only build a house with a Lego because that's all they were capable of doing, I suppose.
yeah,
And we learned how to interlock the
yeah,
Lego pieces, like
mm,
interlock a brick on
yeah,
a house.
mm,
Meccano, of course.
mm,
Um, and but when you get a little bit older, you like to get things a little bit more what's called grown up, if you like.
yeah,
So you'd get like dinky cars instead
yeah,
of, you know. I remember I had a Jensen FF dinky car, which
mm,
I took to pieces. I
mm,
shouldn't have done because
mm,
I couldn't put it back together again. But I needed to know how it worked,
yeah,
you know, because the wheels they turned. If you
mm,
pushed down, the wheels turned, and I
yeah,
wanted to know how that mechanism worked. I didn't find out, but
yeah,
somebody someday will tell me. I've been trying with my own car,
yeah,
my own car, and I
yeah.
still can't. I still can't work it out.
Yeah.
I had a what's called a Mammoth steam engine.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Remember those?
yes, yeah.
Where
I had
you
one.
put methylated spirits in a little chamber, and you put water in the other, and then you
Yeah,
flick on the flywheel, and off it would go. And you had a
yeah,
rod with the steering wheel at the top
yeah,
with a little. How you could
yeah,
steer the thing.
yeah,
Airfix models. I used
yeah.
to be avid Airfix
Mm,
models, a model a week.
mm,
You know, I even got onto the paints and the transfers. My
yeah,
biggest model I made was the Saturn V rocket
mm,
because of the moon landing and all that.
yeah,
What else? Yeah, Action Man. I've never had an Action Man.
mm,
Neither has my brother. We've had a GI Joe because at the
mm,
time when we were given them,
yeah,
we were in Singapore,
yeah. Oh, yeah, been the Americans.
and I
Yeah.
wasn't given I wasn't given a GI Joe. I was given a My Buddy.
Okay,
And
yeah,
my buddy was far inferior to GI Joe.
yeah,
GI Joe, you could bend his arms and legs,
yeah,
and his wrists would swivel, and his
yeah,
fingers were like this,
yeah,
some sort of gang.
yeah,
I think it's to stick his finger through it on a trigger
yeah,
on a gun. But he looked like a gang member.
yeah,
And my buddy, he didn't bend his arms and legs, and his head was hollow.
yeah.
And for some reason, I bit his head and
Oh,
made a big hole in his head.
all right.
And I put him on a skate, I remember, a
Mm.
four-wheel skate, called an ambulance and took him to the emergency hospital to be try and be repaired. Of course, he never did.
Yeah,
So toys, it's all they're all part of growing up, and I think traditional toys these days are more. I think who enjoy traditional toys these days are the adults more than the children. You know, um, the, so like things like board games. As a kid, Monopoly, Totopoly, which
yeah.
is a horse race type
Question, yeah.
thing, Ludo,
Mm,
drafts,
mm,
snakes and ladders. We had a compendium,
mm.
and so we loved it as a kid. But when
Yeah.
the kids these days, they just don't have the patience, I suppose, to play these board games,
Mm.
or perhaps for the makers, the board games aren't just cutting it anymore for the profits, and so they don't produce as much. And with the trend going through to electronic devices, it's important to have an electronic device as for a youngster
Yeah.
as long as it is educational.
Yeah.
I don't think Space Invaders cuts it for a small child.
No.
I
No.
think because it's a very destructive. First of all, it's a very destructive thing.
Mm.
You have to kill the enemy, and
No.
you're growing up. Need for Speed is about knocking over prostitutes and
No. Grand Theft Auto. Yeah. Shit.
right.
Yeah.
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 Um, so I've never been a fan for electronic games as such.
Yeah.
However, there are electronic games where a child can learn if it presses the right button.
Mm.
They do it with chimpanzees as well, funnily
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah. Well.
If you press the right button, you get a treat.
Yeah.
Well, with the kids one, if you press the right button, it goes di which is
Mm.
annoying at Christmas when you're trying to watch the telly.
Yeah. Well, that's it.
Could have
That's it.
been worse though. It could have been a drum.
Yeah. The favorite
I think
auntie. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if the games are educational, then it's all it's all it's all valid.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're looking at toy shop now. They just talk about the traditional games. I mean, Monopoly and things like that. I mean, you could get different variations of Monopoly. Even latest trends, you get Game of Thrones, Monopoly, I think, and things like this. Yeah. I think the video game you're saying with the soldier is Call of Duty, which is ultra violent and everything else now. Yeah, yeah, I look at this now. Yeah, get back to it. I had fun playing it with these toys. I mean, obviously, it's with my sister. My sister used to play with my cars. Yeah. And yeah, yeah. So when you talk about that, I mean, yeah, if you put, it's funny though, if you put toys with children, they'll pick what they want to pick and everything else. So you could probably put a youngster in a room full of what we call traditional toys, and they gravitate to what they naturally feel happy with.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think is wonderful. And it's like I said, if you put a load of cardboard boxes down and toilet rolls, I'll set them all that they'll start playing with them. A baby will start playing with them, looking,
Yeah, of course.
examining, building up an appreciation of the world, which you
And
don't
even
get. Yeah,
even transforming the toilet rolls into rocket ships and
exactly.
the
Yeah,
cardboard center.
yeah,
I mean, I don't know if you remember, but things like Blue Peter and
yeah,
Magpie,
yeah.
on ITV,
Mm,
they were full of these. Get yourself a toilet roll and get some sticky back
yeah,
plastic,
yeah,
do some of that, and you can make a model of this.
yeah,
Every year there was the coat hangers with the tinsel for
yeah.
the Christmas decorations.
Make your yearly fire hazard. Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that. Yeah, yeah,
right. Well,
yeah, yeah. I mean,
use the round edge scissors, of course.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I mean, yeah, well, that's it with Lego. I mean, talking of health and safety, I mean, I looked in there, there's even a sign saying, beware these parts may not be suitable for young children.
Of course
Yeah.
I know.
I mean, this is it. We're talking about safety. I mean, yeah, parents or guardians, yeah, we say parents, guardians have to be responsible. But yeah, we talk about house building. I remember there used to be, it used to be my dad's and my uncle's. We somehow it ended up in our thing. We had a kit called Baco, and these things you built houses with them. I think it's called Baco. And yeah, you had a slotted a ball that just had holes in it. You put in these little metal poles, bit holes into it. Then you slotted them in like that. You can make all sorts of different types of houses. I think it's called
Prefabs.
Baco. Probably, yeah, something like that. I can't remember. Fascinating. I did some things. Yeah, I mean there was some imagination and yeah, but yeah, I mean I do see younger members of my family. It's quite funny actually because a younger member of my family, I think he had an electronic game that involved these guns. Yeah, a number of members of my family were not so happy with. So he was going around with his guns, just pretending to shoot members of the family with. Yeah, I thought it was highly hilarious. I mean, the kid's actually quite intelligent. He's a miniature judo champion, things like that. But yeah, it's quite funny. So yeah, I mean, well, we used to, and that's the other thing now. People worry about it. I used to have guns as well when I was a kid. My mother, parents did like a cowboy gun, and I also had
Yeah.
a more military one like that. My, I know my wife, even if we're in England, we had a son, we got a daughter, had a daughter who wasn't interested in guns. Yeah, like to dolls and things. Um, yeah. Yeah, my wife, if we got a kit with something with a gun in, my wife would immediately throw it out. I mean, it wasn't expensive. Yeah, she just didn't want guns in the house at all. Um, yeah, I think there's a few reasons for that. Um, whereas, yeah, my parents, they didn't care about me having guns. I mean, yeah, you're looking around. I think we were brought up watching war films and we understood the consequences of guns as well. So, it was a two thing like this, or there were programs on telly. I mean, don't forget, TV was a bit different then. If you watched a program, even for children, it showed the consequences of certain things. Again, yeah, okay, let's get away from toys. But yeah, but we used to enact it. We had, and yeah, we talk about imagination, fake swords, um, playing Robin Hood. For example, we grew up with the stories of Robin Hood. Hey, that's great fun. You didn't even need a toy for that. You just do that. Yeah. Yeah, I mean it was pure imagination because yeah, I mean there's just like say this triggered some memories going into this Lego store. And yeah, I'm looking around. I mean, obviously I like Star Wars, as like I said, and we used to make the Star Wars kit in the 70s. Yeah, it was still at school. We watched Star Wars, probably didn't know the slightly different nuances to it. But yeah, hey man, the action in it. Um, and yeah, and I always remember 633 Squadron I watched when I was very young. I made just a model kit of a mosquito, literally just the wheels and all that became the propellers. Yeah. But it was yeah, you just use your imagination. And again, I remember having cardboard boxes compiled with the Lego. Yeah.
Well, with you, it looks like the Lego store fulfilled its objective, which
Well,
is, of course, to stimulate the memories of the parents,
yeah,
because
exactly. Yeah.
they're the ones that's got the money,
Yeah.
so that
Well,
they can buy the kits for them kids, and also if the kids don't play with them, they can do it themselves.
well,
It,
these things, I mean, it's incredible. You were talking about the Saturn V model. You can
yeah.
buy the Lego kit of it.
Mm.
Um, and um, and I think, well, no, that's not a toy. That's an intricate scale model or something. That still looks like. I mean, a lot of it's getting away from Lego for me. It's looked too smooth, too perfect.
Well,
Um,
my Saturn V rocket it
yeah,
soon got broken because I treated it as a toy
yeah,
after I made it. Because when you make these models, there's a
yeah,
part that goes inside another part,
yeah,
and like at the cone where
yeah,
the lunar man module fit inside,
yeah,
and the thing is that to appreciate the whole thing, you'd have to take it apart again so you could
yeah,
see the part that
yeah.
has been hidden.
Mm.
And this eventually led to throwing the thing and
Yeah. Oh
as
well.
it goes, as it travels through space. You know, just
Normal thing.
launch the thing as it travels through space.
Yeah.
Then, of course, what goes up always comes down.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I remember my uncle, bless him.
Yeah.
He was an avid model maker. He was one of these guys. I don't know if you've seen on the telly where there are people that buy models of knights and
Yeah.
cavaliers,
Yeah.
and then they splice them up, and then so they can be in different positions,
Yeah.
and they create a whole battlefield of these
Yeah.
things. These all made. That was my uncle. You
Yeah.
know,
Right.
he buy models and
No.
used to
Yeah.
alter them, and he once gave me an aeroplane with a rubber band with a propeller.
Oh
You
yeah.
know,
Yeah. I know
a
that.
wind up thing,
Yeah.
and I threw it and on its maiden flight, and of course it crashed and broke.
Yeah. I mean,
I never told him. I never told him, of course.
yeah. I always remember the other thing we had. We talk about these things, the cat guns, giving explosives to kids. Do you remember the cat
Yeah,
guns? There were
yeah,
two
yeah.
types. Yeah, there was a reel of it you could buy, and it used to
That's right.
obviously hammer used to come down, strike on the gunpowder
That's,
basically.
yeah.
And then the other one was the small cat ones that fitted onto a chain. Yeah, hammer that came down on them.
Yeah.
I've never heard of anyone that actually got injured because of it. I know
No,
somebody went. Yeah,
when I was a kid, I mean, if you give somebody something,
yeah,
they'll learn how to misuse it.
yes,
And so you talk about these reels of caps, yeah, that
mm,
you put in the gun
yeah,
and it'll
yeah,
come up at a time. Well, when I was a kid, there were other kids that got these caps and they'd strike the nail with a thumbnail,
yeah.
and it'd go off.
Oh yeah,
I I mean, so they didn't have the gun anymore. They just had the roller caps, and they'd just
yeah,
be going tap, tap,
yeah,
tap,
yeah. I remember that. Yeah,
put, putting it in your face and going,
yeah. I mean,
you
yeah,
know,
it's so little. Yeah, I mean, yeah. There's probably yeah, one probably blew next to people's ears and things, but it was mind you, as we said, it was the Darwin theory, survival of the fittest. Yeah. Oh,
oh, I'm sure eventually with sparklers,
oh yeah.
sparklers for the kids, and they wave it around and,
Yeah.
do this and do
Yeah.
this and do this, and it leaves a little trail of light behind
Yeah.
it, so that so that it all looks spectacular. But I'm sure that if you give sparklers, I'm sure the youth of today they'll be getting these same sparklers and shoving them up cats' backsides and things like this,
Yeah.
or
Oh,
tying them to cats' tails and to dogs' tails and setting the things off.
I think that's
Unfortunately, the human is a very destructive
yeah.
animal.
I think there still have parents that if I did something ridiculous would soon know about it. Yeah. I think that's it now. Yeah, I mean, I do think these toys or these things, like you say, I mean, yeah, you can make fun from anything. It was an educational process, an education process. Um, I always remember at school, the Star Wars figures actually came in. I mean, okay, it's big merchandising, but it was still imagination. With people doing things. Yeah, we used to copy things off the TV, used to see and everything else. Yeah. But I also remember in the late 70s where the banning culture, probably early 80s, the banning culture started to come in a bit. Yeah. Um, Toys were being pulled off for this reason and that reason. And I remember this
Oh,
happening. Yeah.
well, when the standards started to come in,
Yeah.
and the little pieces couldn't be given. I mean, chemistry sets.
Mm.
You know,
Oh,
we used to have chemistry sets, and if that didn't lead you to anybody trying to drink sulfuric acid, diluted sulfuric acid, I don't know what would,
well, I think I think there was that warning always, but yeah, I think it's when people made things go bang. Um, you figured out you could put fertilizer in something, do the right thing. Yeah, I mean, it did teach you. I mean, the quantities they actually supplied the kit was so small, but yeah, you could do other things with it.
You found out the secret. For example, baking powder and vinegar gives you CO2,
Yeah,
and you can get a good reaction.
yeah.
Custard powder apparently is quite flammable.
Well, yeah. So they've had entire factories blow up again.
That's
And yeah, yeah,
so if you were a devious sort of child, grow up to be a very devious sort of adult. And of course, there are very devious sort of adults around. You know,
Well, yeah, but oh yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, but most adults behave badly if they didn't have a good childhood or lonely child. Yeah. What I think a lot of these toys encouraged is people to play together or the child's imagination go, instead of being lonely. Um, I mean, yeah, there's always going to have people in society have issues. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
I think you just struck a quite an interesting uh, chord there
mm,
because people think that a child that grows up to be a bit of a delinquent
mm,
is from a bad background. That's not necessarily
mm,
true, you
yeah.
know. However, if a child is always lonely
Mm,
and is being rejected by their peers,
yeah.
that, yes, could bring, because that makes people go to extremes.
Yeah.
I need to be liked. Look at me.
We've got a world like that now with even
That's
some of
right.
the games, and yeah, the games are
That's
all online now. The
that's
interactions are
right.
all online.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. Because everybody's alone.
Mm, yeah. I mean, there's us separate places. We're not having a conversation in a cafe here. We're having a conversation. Yeah. Well, quite a few kilometers apart, actually, people. Yeah, we're not. But yeah, it's a different world now. But that brings me back to it. Getting a look at children. Yeah, our traditional toys still have merit. I believe they are. I like my electronic toys. I always did. And it's because my generation, probably more than yours, but we are sort of the same generation in many ways. Yeah. It's the
Ten
same Gen
years.
X.
10 years is a long time.
Well, yeah.
10,
But we have got the same, roughly the same memories broadly. Um, yeah, we loved it and all that, but we adapted. Um, we like the technology as well. We like the electronic toy games. Certainly me, my generation, we like the arcade games. If we didn't like them, they wouldn't be about today. For my daughter to spend, well, she doesn't. Yeah, she spends a lot of time, but like I said, she's got a PC, and the PC's always been adapted around it, so she's learning technical skills. And you get 14-year-olds who are doing this. Yeah, I don't know the parents and all that, but they're learning how to adapt their IT equipment. So again, yes, there could be a beneficial to that. Yeah.
electronic games has never been my
No.
never ever since the ping pong, the
Mm.
electronic ping
Yeah.
pong and Atari thing that you put on the telly.
Yeah.
I mean, I've played it. Funnily enough, what I had
Sorry.
that I
Yeah.
played a lot
Yeah.
as an electronic game was the Millionaires game. Who wants
Yeah.
to be a millionaire?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Up here in
That's
Brazil.
later. Yeah, that's later. Yeah. Yeah.
Here in Brazil. I was
Yeah.
I was here in Brazil. So it showed a million
Yeah.
with Silvio Santos,
Yeah.
and you put in your DVD, and
Yeah.
away you go. You
I
know.
mean, yeah. I mean, we're talking about electronic games. I had the fold up Donkey Kong, the orange box Donkey Kong. I've still got that in the UK somewhere. That's still held on
My
by.
my mate my mate at school, he got a Simon Says,
Oh yeah.
and I hated that thing. I
Yeah.
really, not necessarily because of the concept of it,
Yeah.
but the noise that it made. You know,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when he beat Simon Says, he'd do it this little tune at the end.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
to me really, really, really was.
Yeah.
And
I
that,
mean,
of course, was in the days when wristwatches with the red LED display, you had to push a button
yeah.
to see what the time was.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
were really expensive when they came out,
yeah.
and of course, they're about
Yeah.
a penny a dozen these days.
Actually, I did have computer battleships. We had to program it in, and it was just like the paper one. And you go, yeah, I always
Well,
remember that. Yeah, I had that. I always wanted that. And again, but then it was interactive, and you couldn't play that by yourself. You needed two people.
yeah,
I
of
don't
course.
think you have a single. I mean, yeah, that was good. I mean, it's a variation on a theme. Why can't you just have the two bits of paper and a grid? But yeah, it made it entertaining. It was an interactive thing. You had to program everything. Um, and again, Monopoly teaches taught you other things as well. So Yeah, I think there's still a role for traditional games, but it's quite where the way the future's going. We shall
So
see.
I think the traditional games are more for
Yeah,
when you
that's
talk about board games,
yeah.
it's more for a social
Mm.
gathering, it's social interaction.
Well, having said that, there's a local place here, the Paso Centre here, and I think there's other places in the UK where there are youngsters. They're termed geeks, but
Yeah.
they still go and play Dungeons and Dragons and everything else at these places. So it's great to see sort of teenagers and young 20s somethings all getting together in a social context
Yeah.
to do all this. Not real youngsters. I mean, yeah, I started off talking about real youngsters, but yeah, people still doing this. And I think that's important. I think it's important for society overall, let
Like
alone,
like I said, interaction,
yeah,
the peers around them, the human
mm,
interaction, social interaction, it's all important. It's all
yeah,
important.
yeah.